Ooh. Oh boy. Oh, okay. I'm having a bit of a low blood pressure issue at the moment. I think it's drinking and mostly having something to eat, and then thinking, I don't know. Doesn't matter whether I drink Pepsi, orange juice, or water. It doesn't really matter. I think it's I've got to slow down on the intake, because it's I believe it's doing an imbalance where I'm thinking about something and something causes, and my blood pressure just goes down. I go all faint and dizzy. Anyway, I'm just relaxing at the moment. I know how to try and control this and breathe and see if you can hear high frequencies. At the moment, my tinnitus is kind of on the kind of thing. You know, it's been going like this now for I don't know, 7 hours, I think now. Comes and goes, on and off. Shouldn't have saw Battlestar Galactica in sense around at 120 dB or maybe 130. Anyway, enough of that. So if there's a little thumbnail that's showing my cat with this thing with speakers like speakers that have a frequency range 40,000, 50,000, whatever. That sort of thing's been ongoing for many years. Here's something I bought recently. It's a leaf tweeter. This is a bit of a rare sort of thing. It's pretty heavy, actually. I was going to do a restoration sort of thing on some hi-fi realistic Tandy, whatever speakers, Optimus or Opto, something, whatever. I tried to get another one, but it was a bit hard, a bit awkward, so never mind. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. I've got JBL Cinema Professional speakers that are better than that, because this is only good for very top end sort of. That's of course providing you can hear it, because our hearing range, it rolls off. So you could play, like, say anything like 8,000 kilohertz. It kind of sounds, play it at normal level, so you get it on an SPL meter, whatever. You can set up all the test equipment. You can set up microphone, RTA, in-room frequency response, so it's close to the speaker, with a second microphone that's a little bit further back, with 2 RTA levels, so one's near, one's a bit further back, show the frequency response characteristic. And play a sine wave tone, but say play a sine wave at 10,000 kilohertz. Can you easily hear it? It depends. It depends. I hear it as a very faint sound, so therefore I know the signal on my hearing rolls off. I know the characteristic of frequency response on the speaker with a frequency sweep is going to have this sort of whatever. It's all up and down a little bit within plus or minus dB, etc. And microphone picks it up okay. How well is the microphone accuracy? I mean, is it exaggerating a little bit of the frequency response and given the not really that much, because when you listen to a movie playback sometimes on certain dialogue syllables, I mentioned that in another video, you sometimes hear things a little bit kind of a bit toppy because they've got to have a screen there in the way. It's got to be boosted, and if you put a screen up there, it changes a little bit. But if you still overdo everything, you can get that sound to go too toppy sounding. It's got to be balanced correctly. But films have got what's called an X curve, so they have a roll off. You could play, say, like James Horner's Star Trek II Wrath of Khan. Listen to the opening titles on the movie itself, and then listen to the kind of like almost cut same way that is cut, mixed same way that is not really mixed, to the vinyl LP or CD or compact tape. Music mixers are usually mixed at a flat frequency response, where film has an X curve, and music's mixed at a flat response. That's why they sound different. I'm doing it. Come on. There. Huh. My cat bear being very naughty. So I've got to get him out of the room. So he's out of the room. He's banned. He'll calm down. So every time I turn this thing on, does it emit high frequency EMI, RF, or well, EMI, any sort of signal? Yes, of course it does. Oh, I'm going faint again. My blood pressure's dropping down again. Comes in waves of kind of fluctuation. If I put my EKG, or the thing on my finger, and measured my, it'd be going at the moment. It'd be going like beep 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 beep. That's not good. It's erratic. It should be more like beep beep beep. Hang on. Beep 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 beep. Sort of that sort of rhythm speed. At the moment, it's going beep 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 beep. It's going like that. Oh, believe me. Anyway, this is a JBL tweet. These will be going on some JBL HT1Fs THX. Those were the affordable THX speakers that came around during the early 1990s. Other competitions like B&W, Macintosh, Snell. Oh gosh, how many other blimmin' brands? Everyone was trying to jump on the bandwagon because they want a piece of the action. But JBL was right there at the blimmin' start of it, so they had a bit of a head start, really. But then, all the other cinema or speaker manufacturers selling cinema PA speakers then wanted to submit their speakers, see if they could pass this criteria of standard of THX. Everyone was jumping on the bandwagon. because the JBL 4675A was the first to be used, and so yeah, that's it. Still to this day, I think that cinema speaker is elite. Elite. You don't need anything else. You only need that. You only need 3 of those or 5 of those. Oh, depending on how big your room is. Yeah. No one says you can't use them for the surround channel. It's just providing your room's large enough and you can hide them out and hide them. So this is a tweeter. I think this is a titanium. And that's a leaf tweeter, which I think meaning it's some sort of thin sort of metal or whatever, and attached to a voice coil or whatever. Can't really open it up really because it's all, this is brand new. Imagine getting one of these. Anyway, don't really care. All this is just immaterial stuff to me. Yeah, it's got that kind of almost looks like a cinema horn. That shape, that characteristic, it almost looks a bit like a JBL 23 26 HF horn, because it's got that kind of shape design almost. Only it's a little bit too stretched actually. It'll be a little bit wider actually, but it's got that sort of, so the sound frequency coming at certain angles and then hits and then gives a certain frequency characteristic dispersion for the immersive storytelling. This is reason it's very heavy, and this is obviously a little bit lighter, but the be interesting if I could modify that JBL HT1F and fit that in between the where the little bass drivers go, the little tiny little bass mid drivers go. That would be interesting, mind you. But this thing with 40 and this, I think these are 40. I think they do another one that's 50,000 kilohertz. Ultra wide frequency response, or is it ultra wide frequency range? It's like the map to where the buried treasure is. Oh yeah, the coordinates are over here. Oh, there it is. I'll go get a shovel now and start digging. Yeah, this 50,000 kilohertz. 50,000. Crikey. I mean, the point of putting my cat as a kind of thumbnail in my video was that these speakers, these tweeters or such, or horns, whatever, doesn't matter what, this frequency range is only going to cater for a dog, a cat, and a pet bat. It's not going to cater for our hearing range. Crikey. Not even if you're 10 years old and your hearing range is, and you're into audio and your hearing range is going to be not flat. It's not flat. It still has a specific curve, whatever, but it would be, you'd be able to maybe perceive 20,000 kilohertz sine wave, depending on what headphones, what the frequency response on those headphones are, what on a tweeter, on a HF horn, whatever. Do you hear that tone in the natural world? No, you don't. Not unless it's man-made. Or not unless it's a mouse squeaking at a very high frequency and you wouldn't even hear it, because the squeak allegedly is at very high range that only a cat would hear or pick up on. So there's no point having, there's just ways to say, like, market something I believe, just to get suckers to buy it. 20,000 is about the limit. Under 18 is probably about the most. Depressing, isn't it? You know, and yeah, a dog and a cat and a pet. Well, pet bats are around about 1 kilohertz to upward, so they're not very good for lower frequencies. Whereas cats are predatorily and just about, they say they're 10% domesticated or whatever. They may be maybe 15 now, maybe 20% domesticated. Never know. Hearing the 10% domesticated might be based on decades ago, but if they're in the wild, yeah, they're different. And to achieve, well, here 50,000 kilohertz with these, first of all, I have to configure my computer so I can get a frequency sweep, and I can do a sweep to from on the computer sound card, so a loop, so output to input, and then do a loop frequency sweep, so it shows the range going flat up to 50,000 kilohertz, which I think is the max most it would do on the computer. I think there are things you can get and go higher, but then it's going up into the range where you're going around looking for bats, and they got this very high frequency pitch, or maybe a mouse, or and you can't play those sounds as like on these nature shows, like, oh, this is the sound of a mouse, blah blah blah. That's inaccurate bullshit, because you should only be showing it on an RTA analyzer or an FFT or something, like there's the frequency, but audibly you can't hear it. It's like an episode in Star Trek one time. They had this scientist guy, and they want to get to Edon, and he wants to demobilize the crew of the Enterprise by using ultrasonics to knock them out, because if it's a signal that's high frequency amplified at ridiculous level, it would stun you. It would knock you out, disorientate you, so to speak. It can be also fatal. So they use this tone in the show, and yet it's a very audible frequency, obviously noticeable, because it sounds like it's somewhere between 8 and 4 kilohertz. And you got Spock's squeak, it's ultrasonics, and yet you can hear it like clear as a bell. And he's like, I can't hear anything. Captain Kirk says next. TV show frequency response on the TVs all back then, even though mixed on dub stages, such as they'd be on bigger speakers that a better frequency response than TV sets would have. Frequency response on typical TV speakers, oh gosh, donkey, years ago, they'd have a roll off or a range maybe to about typical maybe 8 kilohertz, maybe 10, but sloping off. But who's had test equipment back then to test all that? Hardly any. Only very few people would have that test equipment. Today, anyone can get hold of it. It's like very common now to go out and get test equipment, and very cheap, and do these tests. There's no way I can test this, because I won't be able to get my frequency sweep to go up above 20. It just stops at about 20, and because the settings on the computer, even though the settings on the REM, they look okay, sort of thing, and I can get other adjustments where I can get the graph, that is the graph, to expand up to about 50,000 kilohertz, but I can't get the sweep to go up there. I'm thinking there's got to be some settings on the computer that I haven't turned on to enable the handshake, so it can say, yeah, I can do this frequency sweep. It's pointless. There's no point me going for it. I mean, even if you put a crossover at, say, crossover at around about just about 10,000 kilohertz at 48 dB. So it's going to knock off all the other frequency. You might just still hear a little bit of a sine wave of maybe 8 kilohertz peeping through, but it's going to be way down here. And then you turn the filter off, yeah, boom, and that frequency is going to go bam right up here, and you're going to go like that. So if you were to put a filter in, and then you got the range continuing upward, you go and listen to, say, anything like Jean Michel Jarre, you know, all the all that top end sort of, it would sound like, it sounded like that. Bloody annoying. And it'd be like, you want to go and listen to 50,000 kilohertz? They don't mix. They don't have practical instruments that go that high. You know, it's like having an organ that goes down low frequency, you know, down below 20 hertz, infrasonic. There's no point going up there. The only problem you have is your risk with inexperience, your risk damaging your hearing, because, as well as your equipment, because it has to be amplified. Otherwise, you ain't just going to hear it. The microphone might pick it up. The RTA electronically, when you do the frequency, picks it up, no problem, and the frequency response is perfect. When it goes airborne in the room, you got to be careful. Otherwise, the power putting into it, you could burn out the voice coil, which is down here. Well, that's the magnet. The voice coil is a little bit in there. The voice coil is more or less attached to this, and it's very fine, and then it slots, and then it's like, this is the magnet here, this is the diaphragm, and then it slots in, and that's the voice coil going around it, and then the magnetic field, and then that creates the sound waves. This way before I bloody break it. I haven't even fit. I've had two of these now. I've got two of them. I haven't even fit them in the speaker yet. I haven't even bothered doing it yet. But I've tested this recently in another video, just to show it works and that, and did some pink noise through it and sine wave sweep. I think I did a sine wave, and I did it in the video and showed what currently what it can do at because it's going to stop and roll off at 20,000, because I can't go any higher, because it just starts to roll off on the high end, and you wouldn't hear it. You wouldn't hear any fundamental. You wouldn't hear a sine wave. You wouldn't hear a sine wave unless you're playing it at a very ridiculous level, and then the next thing you're going to see is smoke coming out the tweeter, because these can burn out. A story is, a friend had these, and that's why I got his speakers. He didn't want them anymore. And he had many of these many years ago. They were fitted sort of in the speaker itself. He said they were rubbish and the crap and all this sort of thing. But problem is, he only had very little test equipment. He was fairly knowledgeable of, and said, everyone, can you hear this? Next thing we see is smoke coming out of this. Because probably what's going on there is generating distortion within the passive crossover on the speakers. Also, probably generated also within the amplifier. That was the amplifier receiver that was being used. And also probably the graphic equalizer that was used. I think it was a realistic EQ that had these red, amber, no, green, amber, and red little LEDs that move. That was in between. They move all up and down, and then you got. I think it was something more like a half octave equalizer, 12 band, half octave, so it wouldn't be third octaves. So if you raised 1 kilohertz frequency up, it will raise up the neighboring frequencies below it and above it. Whereas a third octave, the Q bandwidth is a little bit narrower, and if you raise it up, and then eventually if you keep turning up and up and up, of course, eventually it's going to raise up the neighboring frequencies, but you're going to make that frequency that you're rising up very high. Oh, it's going to sound awful. And then talk about sound that's colored. It'll all be playing at bloody frequency all the time, and it'll sound annoying. So you're generating also a bundle of harmonic distortion maybe into the amplifier, and then into the passive crossover, and it can't handle the. And then something. What's that smell? Oh gosh, that's burnt out again. Because you haven't got test equipment to see the frequency and play, say, like a sine wave and say, can you hear that? And it's like, no. And they think, well, you're sat in that position. Let me move into the position that you're sat in. Oh, now I hear it because of standing waves in a room. If everything's perfectly and set up and tested, so you could sit here, and you can still hear that high frequency, then yeah, that's good. But if it's in a position where, if you're going to be sat in a position where I can't hear it. It's got nothing to do with your hearing range and ego and all that sort of nonsense. I think it's pathetic sometimes that some people think, oh, my hearing's better than yours. No, it's not. I'm standing sat in a bloody null. And they'll go, what's a null? I first picked up on nulls and all that, even though I didn't know they were nulls. When TV broadcasters go down, close down at the end of the day, you get a test card on screen with a 1 kilohertz sine wave. And I remember turning off the TV. My dad went to bed, and walking up to it, and then I heard this, the sine wave, which sounds like. Just find anything general. I was going to use YouTube, and I'll just open True RTX quicker on that. Come on, open up. 1 kilohertz and sine wave. You had the 1 kilohertz. The end of the end of the day with a test card. The test card was there to, give you opportunity to calibrate your color on your TV, because test cards back then were like, they weren't easy accessible to go down the shop and get a VHS tape with a test card signal. You had to wait and say, or just video the test card, right, that you see on TV at the end of the day. And you're like, you got a test card, you got with a sine wave tone. You can calibrate your TV. Oh dear, your TVs back then were very limited. Not that it would be impossible to figure out where the amplifier is, connect into the speaker, and then trace it back, and then say fit a graphic equalizer in there, and then bam, you could equalize the sound on your TV. That's all possible back then, but no one was thinking, obviously, because you only had standard volume and some filters in the TV to do the frequency, etc. Okay. So I showed a leaf tweeter. I'm not really in the mood to doing any setting up some cable because I'd have to get a. I might do this in another video. I'm just trying to relax at the moment because I just don't want to move around much. I had to get Bear out of the room because he was every time I do these videos, he goes bonkers. And he's jumping around everywhere and he's trying to break everything like a cat would do. So I had to get him out of the room. And Magic's already relaxed. He's had a bit of a day yesterday of the bear and wants to relax. Wants to relax. Okay. Here's a typical JBL HF compression. Oh, and this is bloody heavy. And I've had a £50 one, Cinema Professional one, land on my head, almost, and blood everywhere. And I still get a bit of a weird sensation over this side because that's a lot of pressure. But this is still bloody heavy. But the other ones, I mean, I could pick that up there, but the other HF, I need two hands to pick the blooming thing up. It's that heavy. I can just about unthread this one. Sometimes it's a little bit awkward to unthread. Oh, that squeak. Oh. Sounds like the bloody thing from War of the Worlds. Or War of the Worlds. Oh, what's that squeaky? What's that turning sound? And then suddenly, you get that thing coming out. It almost looks like a HF. That's the horn. 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. Test 1 2 1 2 1 2. That's interesting. I've never done that before. I should do it I might do another video so I could test on the RTA. Anyway, that's the magnet structure, or the phase plug. They often call it the phase plug. That's bloody heavy. And this is the diaphragm. And it's not a case of you get a diaphragm that's not working, it's burnt out, or the voice coils, but and you get another one of these and just fit it on. It's not a case just fit it on, put the screws in, and you hear. Most people will typically start playing music. That's not the correct way. Just put this thing down. It's bloody heavy. That's the incorrect way to testing. You got to put it through pink noise, sine wave sweep, so you get frequency graphs, because you've got to check that it measures the same with the other one, and aligning. You got to put it in, and you got to turn it maybe a little bit. You put the screws in and just give a little wiggle there. You got to do a careful alignment so that play some sine wave tones that are a little bit low down, below 1 kilohertz, down into the hertz range. Not too low, down to 800 maybe. I've even tested it down to 500, maybe 400. I think, trying to push the limit of what can come through, so to speak. And then if I start seeing things like harmonic frequencies appearing, those are harmonic frequencies are phantoms. They're hallucinations. The phase, the diaphragm is not correctly aligned, and so just give it a careful alignment. But given the amplitude level of what the fundamental sine wave is playing, it will eventually, on some things, on some speakers, and so it will create some harmonics. But they're phantoms, they're hallucinations. You can't equalize them. You can see a sine, some fundamental there, and you've got some harmonics down here. You can't put an equalizer on it and bring it down. It won't do nothing. It won't do a thing. You could put, say, maybe a passive filter on the actual speaker itself, and that might notch it down. But then you're just going to turn it into a real dog's dinner. So the harmonics could be generated through the amplifier. They could be generated through. It could be sound per OK on the amplifier, and once the amplitude level reaches a high level onto the speaker itself, it might then start appearing with some harmonics. But you just have to align it to get most of that eliminated, as well as the sine wave tone itself. It has to sound like the pure tone of that sine wave. It can't sound like it sounds like distorted or something, because then it's misaligned. It's just, and then that's it. That's good. Tighten down the screws. Good. You got to test that for all the, you can't just put a HF driver on a new HF, new diaphragm on a, you got to test them afterwards to see that they are all spot on. I've never done that before. Ooh, testing. 1, 2, 3. Not sure what it sounds like this thing, because I can only hear it back here, so to speak. Testing. That sounds different. That does. That sounds, that kind of sounds like a bloody Christopher Nolan movie. It's bloody no wonder his dialogue's muffled. I'm experimenting with film sound. Yeah, he's been doing that for 10 years or so, hasn't he? Yeah, put a sock in it, Christopher Nolan, please. I mean, he doesn't use dialogue panning much in his movie, I have to say, so. And Nolan's not really into the surround channel. I don't understand why he just doesn't have his movies mixed simply as LCR LFE, no surround at all. Because he mentioned somewhere he doesn't really care for the surround channel. Yeah. It's like other directors don't really like hyping their name, hyping them up. People like Woody Allen. I'm not into his movies at all. But he only mixes in mono. Or has his movies in mono. And mono, there's not a problem with that at all, really. No problem with it. You get decent mixing with mono. I believe I read somewhere a mono mix often costs a little bit more than to do a Dolby stereo mix. That's what I read years ago. Probably due to maybe the time more spent and complexity. And yet it's only mono. I've listened to quite a lot of mono mixes, and on some and think, wow, this is pretty good. It's too bad it couldn't be multi-channel. A little bit beyond multi. Yeah, these are pretty cheap, the leaf tweeter. But you ain't going to hear high frequencies up to, because it's just going to roll off. Our hearing range rolls off. And if I were to mention to anyone on a forum, it's better to get them. It's better to get them in a video conference sort of thing, so that there's no cheating. Okay, if you know what I mean. I can just barely with the tuning on the speaker, the effort put into the tuning, I can just barely hear faintly 18,000 kilohertz, and it's faint. 16, just a little bit easier, but still, there's a little bit of effort has to be put into it. But 20, no, it's not a possible chance. And over 20, forget about it. Even if I was, like I say, even if I were 10 years old and into all this, could I hear that? And it would sound like a sine wave. It would sound like a pinching sound, like that pinches. Can't say my tinnitus is doing any good at the moment. This hissing sound. Oh, duh. Once you go over the fret, once your ears are your hearing is exposed to a high sound pressure level, like sensor round, over nearly 40 years or so ago. Over 40 years ago. Once it goes over, your hearing ranges, say this is normal range, okay? And then up here, right up there, it's the threshold of pain, about roughly 120. Sometimes they say about 130. Realistically, going over 80 is asking for trouble. You're asking for trouble. But if you want to invite it, it's your life. If you want to invite it, otherwise I'll say, here's a telescope. You got everything you need for it. I'll keep the filters, the sun filter. You won't need that. So I think you'll enjoy looking at the sun. Yeah, but I heard it's dangerous. How do you know? Have you ever looked at it? No. Well, go and have a look. I'll keep the filter, all right? I think I want the filter. Why? Well, something tells me it's a good idea. Yeah, I even forgot one time to put the sun filter on. Yeah, that was years ago. It's only a little filter and it's black, kind of the same, similar to arc welding. I forgot to put the filter on, glanced over, and woof, like that, literally like that. The eyepiece is there, and like that, flinched, moved away from it, directly felt the heat going against my eye from a tiny, narrow spot on the diameter of the eyepiece, because they all learn different diameters, 25, 6 mil, etc. And it was a small one, and I moved it like that, felt the heat, had 8 minutes temporary blindness in my right eye, couldn't see a thing. I thought, oh gosh sakes, my dad's going to know something's not right, and he's going to take the telescope away from me because I don't respect it. It's the same with going up, messing around and going up into high frequencies. You got to understand you could do damage to your hearing, you could do damage to your equipment, but your equipment could be replaced. Once you've done damage to your hearing, that can't be replaced. That's irreversible. But you can always fix the damaged components on a speaker, and you can't put, I could still, like I say, I could just hear high frequency still. I just get tinnitus on and off. And it's just like, say, it's like a capacitor that's failing, and it's just making a lot of noise. Desolder the capacitor, put a new capacitor in. It's a-okay. Can't do it with this. It's just not. They can kind of make bionic hearing or such, but it's synthetic. It'd be like a microphone. It's synthetic. A microphone may have a kind of bit of fluid, a cooling fluid, or something there, like a speaker would have a cooling fluid, a ferro something, ferro liquid cooling to reduce it overheating too much. It's just there, but it can still overheat. But it's different with ours. It's a specific fluid, and it's a little bit more. Yeah. They say diet sometimes helps. Orange juice, vitamin C. Yeah, okay. So I try some of that sometimes and see if it can add, to see if it could be a remedy. Sounds just about really it. I mean, all these speakers with 40 and 50k, 90,000 kilohertz, whatever. Oh yeah, right, sure. My cats can hear up to about, their range roughly is about up to a 90,000 kilohertz. But I haven't got test equipment here to play a fundamental sine wave where they're going to be interested in. I think they may find it as an annoyance. Yeah, both ears. Bloody tinnitus. I must have been sat in a spot in that auditorium, because every room or whatever is going to have, like I say, the frequency response is going to be a little bit of this, and then you're going to have a frequency null, a bit of a dip or such. It depends, I must have been in a spot in the auditorium. I know I was sat roughly middle. Hang on. Where was I sat? Actually, I think I was a little bit more in the first row of the auditorium. You got the first row, and then you got the circle, and then you got the Pullman seating, which was kind of like a office chair seating sort of thing, very comfortable. I saw earthquake in those seats at least four times, I think. Didn't have a problem, and that was early 75, early 1975. Didn't have a problem until I saw Battlestar, and I noticed all this hissing sound at night time. What is that? And even now to this day, I was not exposed to any other sound system as powerful as that Sensurround. Nightclubs, I can't go near them because I'm underage. I wasn't exposed to any loud sound other than Sensurround around 1979. Battlestar Galactica had one of the most intense use of that. All that. Well, those vipers roaring down the kind of get this air pressure. Ridiculous, whatever it was, ridiculous. And it had a sense of sensor movement sort of thing, kind of forward back sort of thing. Because the sound generator does a few things, whereas the home whatever it doesn't. You just get an LFE track, and it's even on the even on the DVD, or is it the Blu-ray of Battlestar? It is extremely, it is overused. The use of the LFE sensor round, so-called sensor round, it's really overused for the 2 hour duration. So most people think they're going to play. You can't really play it back in home. You can play it back, be entertained by it, but you won't get that sense around. It had a specific signature sound to it, and there's no existing speakers today that had their plans that you can build, and you wouldn't want them in your home because it ain't going to fit in your home. It wouldn't fit. They're ridiculously bloody large, and they wouldn't fit. But they had to be for the auditoriums to move that air, because that was the goal to trying to achieve. And there's a big one right at the front of the auditorium and two more at the back of the auditorium. And so it had this kind of pressure wave kind of moving. It's very, oof. Yeah, when those Vipers were going down, dun 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 dun, dun. Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's it. So I'm under an hour now. I'm under an hour. That's it. So you can't hear these frequencies. If you see any speakers with all this bloody high frequency range, yeah, most of them are cheap, sometimes, and some of them are expensive, and you get all different types of grades of these things, because you've got to have something that has enormous high power handling. It's like you say with low frequencies, it needs to be greatly amplified to perceive. You've got to have an amplifier power sufficient. You've got to have a sensitivity on a sub, and there is really no real sensitivity, really. You do a frequency sweep, and then you look at, there's the highest point, and that's the sensitivity. Otherwise, you think, I don't really think it is. There's also the excursion, how far back and forth that sub bass or that speaker can move. I think that's what kind of counts, really, because the playing infrasonics at a realistic level where you can feel a pressure in the room, but you can't hear anything else. You shouldn't really hear anything else. If you do, then it's then starting to be ridiculously amplified, and it's because do we feel it, notice it on a daily basis? No, we do not. You could be in a room, a restaurant. Does the sound press against your body? Like in a movie like Star Trek 4, the Voyage Home in THX 70mm, does it press against you? That is movie land. That's exaggeration. And it's like, that should be the norm. But realistically, only certain things are going to feel like press against your body, like G-force, centrifuge. Crikey, you don't have to go too far to experience anything like a centrifuge. Just go down to a local park and go on a merry-go-round. Just a video and sort of like say how you're experiencing, what you're feeling, given how many rotations or what, and then get off it, and then okay, you got something there like, and then go back and watch a couple of movies that got something that's got a centrifuge used in a movie, and then are you going to take that scene in that movie, and it's only for a short time, and it's a little bit maybe taking it to the literal, like they use a little bit of it in space Cowboys, where they're using a centrifuge. Had a decent mix in some low frequencies, but the scene didn't play very long. I think the best movie usage of a centrifuge is Moonraker, and that's pretty decent sounding with a remix slightly, because the surrounds should be mono discrete. But they remixed it, so it's got when the centrifuge is moving around and off-screen sounds, you hear it go around that way and then coming around that, and then phantom image and going around that way and so forth, and then the bass increasing as the bad guys turning the dial. You should, But next other thing is go on a roller coaster ride. You can't duplicate that sort of thing with, you ain't gonna. It's not going to do it. Not unless you make your home a complete theme park. My cat Bear wants to get in the room. No, Bear, you're not coming in because you're going to be a naughty boy. Anyway, I'm going to be finished with this in a moment, and you can come back in. Because obviously the transmission, he can pick it up. That's my theory. He picks it up. I've got my kind of Ghostbuster sniffer thing, and everything has a specific frequency. It all generates a specific frequency of electronics. All have a different signature sound. Yeah. I don't know why I'm bother rehashing the same thing. There's no point. You're not going to hear it. It's not going to sound entertaining. At least it doesn't, even on Jim Jar music. It's just... He does... The music mixers do go up to about that range. But... you could put a crossover filter in at around, like, say, 10,000 kilohertz at 48 dB. And it's like... I don't know. You got to amplify it greatly, that range, that part of the range, and then the other frequency range, you got to have it a little bit lower down, otherwise it sounds too loud. So you got to have it kind of elevating this way, sort of thing. Otherwise, you're not going to perceive those high frequency sounds. They just go completely unnoticed, because all the other frequencies in below it will be in front. It's sort of like, these are the high frequencies that we can hear, that we can't hear, and they're there, so to say, with our hearing roll off, that is, and versus the distance away from the, if you're using headphones, you still got to equalize the adjustment and such. But the tone might be there, and the other frequencies that we realistically hear, they're up here. They're a bit further back, but they're up here. So they're just going to go completely over the top of this. You wouldn't hear it. You got to bring that down, and then you just you can get a presence of sort of thing. You can just sense a presence. But you look at the frequency, put your music on a REM, RTA, true RTA, or whatever. And then look at the frequency response of, say, 2-channel stereo or 3-channel or whatever, and look at the overall frequency response as it's playing, and then you think, oh right, there is a little bit more there, and I can't really hear it that clear. So if you make some adjustments, bring everything else down with a filter, but a simple filter that you can put in, and just lower everything else down, and then take the amplifier level up, because most people probably got their AV receivers set at minus 20 dB or minus 15. Very few of them are going to have it at minus 10. And they got small speakers, and it's going to sound dreadful. They're not cinema speakers. And most people haven't got the experience, and they probably don't know what a cinema speaker sounds like, even if it fell on top of them. When you listen to, that a cinema, you don't have to have it that playing. You don't have to have really that loudness, tone, whatever, playing at that full level in a small room. It just won't fit the size of the room. You got to adjust it. That doesn't mean get small speakers. Small speakers, it's like all this Blu-ray, 4K, Atmos, so-called lossless audio BS is like, and then you put these little speakers, that's like playing bloody MP3 bloody sound. You're throwing most of the sound away. Go and get some cinema speakers, and then you adjust the sound to fit the size of the room. And then you're going to notice, oh, wow. Oh, that's a difference I'm hearing. I didn't notice that before. And, and you think, oh, that manufacturer was BSing with buy these speakers, etc., etc. They're brilliant. They're Calypso or they're JBL synthesis. Personally, I like JBL, but I wouldn't put a JBL synthesis speaker into a dog cat rescue shelter. I think they're overpriced and overrated. I would never own them. Yeah, I got something near equivalent to it, which is what, a JBL HT1Fs. Because the next ones above that were the synthesis, but they were just like regular. Most of it, it's just like regular Pro JBL components inside. And yet they're selling that stuff at stupid prices. Stupid. Where the luxury rich people think, oh, I've got to have that. But they probably never even been to a real THX professional cinema. So they don't know what to expect. They think they got to have it. They don't. They don't need it. Because they haven't experienced the professional, they won't appreciate it. You go see JBL synthesis now on eBay. Yeah, a lot of it doesn't even hardly sell. It's like that owner is stuck with it. It's lost its value. A lot of speakers will lose their value. If a lot of AV receivers will lose their value. Like they got now a Denon 15.2 or no 15.4. That's only like having that's like putting lipstick on a pig. It's like putting a Behringer DCX and attaching it to a bloody a Denon and then saying, oh, it's 15.6 or 15.8 or 15.16. There is no 16. Really. The LFE only goes to 0.1. They say it goes to 0.2 on some DTS. But I'm not seeing it light up on that. I'm not seeing it. So it must be a myth. I think there should be more than an LFE 0.1 now in this. There should be at least... so it plays specific frequency to a specific scene. So you can have LFE for left, center, right, not saying it's part of the LCR channel, and one for the surround, one for the surrounds and so forth. So they will play specific frequency, dynamic ranges and frequency, etc., while the other speakers are playing their specific range. It would be totally the opposite of, and they should, I think it should be like that at least by now, but I don't really care really, because like I say, you go out in real life mostly, you don't feel it pressing against. You get into a car or a bus, etc., or you feel the mechanical vibrations. you hear the acoustical and feel the mechanical vibrations. And the mechanical vibrations are mostly in your feet, in where your feet are laying down on the floor of the bus. You raise your feet up, you lost half of that bass infrasonic and sub bass feel. You lost half of it because you've decoupled your feet from the floor. Put them back down, and you notice a bit more vibration. And so you got to have like shakers, bass shakers underneath the floor. So not just in the seat, but in the floor as well. So whether I'm sat like that with cross leg, or like that, or like that, even still, one foot would be still down on the floor, and I'll still be feeling something there and feeling something in the seat. And they've got to get the balance correct to kind of create a sub-bass shaker psychic acoustic vibration feel. What the heck did I just say? I just made that up. I think that's pretty cool, actually. What was that I said? Sub-bass shaker psycho acoustic feel. It sounds pretty cool, that. Because most people have sub-bass shakers, nearly all in. I did have them on the floor, but there's only so much vibration with this material. It's got to be specific. You can't just randomly, put it down. Everything's got to be so engineered from scratch. You might get lucky with just putting them on underneath the floorboards attached to the floor joists, as well as the floorboard itself. They shouldn't make a rattle sound. They shouldn't make any buzzing sound. You should only get something that you can feel. Okay. And so, like, overdoing it too much, and then you notice something's rattling. Then you got to figure out how to dampen it. And you might have to put extra absorbent material where the bass shaker is like, say that's the bass shaker, and then it fits flat against the surface. And you might need to put an extra bit of rubber, and then try that and see how it goes. And then it's not a case of just testing it like that. You got to have it on a voltmeter, see how many volts you're putting through with a sine wave. And if if you're going over the limit and it's like it's making strange noises, you look at that voltmeter, it's like up to 10 volt. That's bad. You want to back it on down, otherwise you're going to burn it out. You blow the bass shaker up, you burn it out. Just as easy you could burn those out with being careless. So yeah, it's having something specific so you can feel the because realistic sub-bass speakers or speakers being used as subs, it's just a frequency crossover, and then it's called a sub-bass speaker. Or then you cross it over another way, and then it's called an infrasonic speaker. And then you cross it over another way, and it's an ultra high frequency. And yet it's only going to entertain a dog, cat, and a pet bat. The infrasonics may entertain, but you feel a sort of something there, so to speak, which I can get in this room through my JBL cinema speakers. I can sense there's something, just like I'm sat in the seat here. It's a rocker seat, cinema rocker seat, so it's going to flex and move, and it's like, because I can just feel the seat rocking. Bear, you're not coming in. No, you're not coming in, Bear. You'll come in after I finished. So I can just feel, if I go a little bit, or do that, and then that, and then that. So when clenching my fists, I get a little bit different rhythm of vibration. If I was standing, if I stand up and do that, it's totally the opposite because I'm not sat in a seat that's flexible and rocks. So there's a lot of psychoacoustical feeling knowledge to understand about it. Not just say, oh, I can get my seat, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And where's the rest of the data? Where's the frequency suites? Where's all the rest of the test? How close, how many volts are you pushing through that thing? Oh my goodness, Bear opened the door. I had that door fairly tightly closed. And Bear opened the door. He is a strong cat. He's a strong cat. Are you relaxed now, Bear? You're going to be a good boy. Hey? You're going to be a good boy. Oh, he's rubbing his head up against me because he's like saying, oh, I'm sorry, I was a pain in the arse earlier. You are a pain in the arse, Bear. Yeah. I got had when I got you. I was had. I thought I was going to get another cat that's going to be like Sooty, but you just turned out to be like problem child. Bad to the bone, and then bad to the bone, and then. He's got his eyes go red sometimes. Yeah, that door is tightly closed. So he doesn't like being cuddled, and I know when I've got to put him down, otherwise he'll I'll get scratched. A cat can do this incredible twisting turn or such, or when they're jumping, or you kind of throw them, sort of thing. Not really throw them, but then that's how they would come off, jumping off a wall, and you watch how they turn and twist and they land, bam, perfect. Depending on the surface, of course, depending on the ground surface, what it is, if it's slidey or slippy, they will slide, and you often see them sometimes running down a hallway, chasing the other cat, and they come to a stop because their paws are soft, and then they go sliding across like it's ice. But he's a what you call a snowshoe cat, and he's doing that shit up there right now. He's going to go behind. He's going to look for somewhere to go behind my projector. Out, come on. No, he's trying. No, he's just been naughty again. Yeah, but you come in and you're a good boy, and now you're being naughty again. Hey, come on, there. You got bored laying up here? Magic's having a cat nap. He's having a cat nap. Well, can't pet him like that. Can't pet him like that because they use their back legs and they start kicking in the. Never pet a cat when they do that. Never pet them. That's an invitation to say, oh yeah, put your hand down, you get scratched. Aren't you? Oh, his eye colour, it changes. His eye colours change. He's got a nice little bottle brush tail. Come on. Oh, can you come up here? No? I don't want to come up here. It's comfortable. It's comfortable up here. Hey, Bear, can you hear high frequency? Of course you can, but just haven't got you're not interested in if I play a sine wave at what, 20,000 kilohertz? That's about the most I can play. Maybe 22 at the very least. I mean, yeah, I can get some high frequencies a little bit over on the RTA, but they will roll off. But he's not interested. He's not interested. The only thing interests them is food. Water and food. And that's the only thing that interests them. And washing themselves. Making sure their fur is nice and clean and fluffy. So if I put this down here, I wonder if he'll look at himself as if he's looking in a mirror. Uh-oh, he's going to stand on the keypad. That's not good. I don't stand on that. Oh. Not a good idea. So he'll put his paws on the touch thing down there, and then it'll mess everything up. Yeah, that's right. Meow. 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 Oh, claws. Got to wear Kevlar or a sock, a couple of socks, or a blanket or a towel around your hand. Oh, he's going to do this again. He is crafty. Get out of there. He was going to jump up there and then changed his mind. Anyway, he's going to try and wind magic up now. Come on, Bat. Come on. So he's Mischief Kitty. Yeah. If I were to say, if you want to do tests, all this, I would say you got to get some test subjects. Male, female, different age groups. So you got to have children, probably around, oh gosh, this is difficult. So a child understands maybe basic instructions of what you're going to do. So at a certain point, you will say, raise your hand if you hear this tone on this side, and then raise your hand on this side if you hear the tone. That's what usually an audiologist does when you go for an audiology hearing test. Get out of there, Bear. Where are you? Where'd he go? Is he back there? Oh, no. Now the magic's up. Oh, no. Anyway. That's it. So you got to have age groups and such, and then you have adult age groups. And you do all these tests so you can build up and then go a hearing range test, and then go up into over 20,000 kilohertz at safe levels and so forth. Bear, Anyway, I've got to finish this now because Bear's on the rampage, and so I've got to give my kitties a little bit of food, calm them down.